Hi, Democrats. Today it's Tuesday, August 2nd, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Life. Happy Tuesday. So, we are 3 weeks away from the election on August 23rd. 3 weeks. We are 6 days from the last day that you can request your absentee ballot. It is rushing along, it is coming along, and I feel like I need to take the next 3 weeks and make sure that I hammer home the importance of showing up for every election. So, this is an election in August. People typically do not show up for the elections in August. It's worse than the primaries. People really don't show up for the primaries, but then August they forget that it's even happening and no one shows up. And so I thought I would give real world examples of why it's important to show up. You all have heard, particularly if you watch me, you know that Tulsa Public Schools has some crazy drama going on in the Tulsa Public Schools. Tulsa Public Schools, the second largest school district in the state, has now been downgraded to accredited with deficiencies, which is nonsense, but it is absolutely a plan from this governor and the Secretary of Education to defund education so that they can privatize it. That's it, right? Defund education so they can privatize it. But it's really important. And why I want to talk about that is not necessarily because I want to talk about Tulsa Public Schools, but I want to give you an example of what happens when people don't show up. So the drama is all because we have a few extremists on the school board in Tulsa. And I'm going to call them extremists because I'm going to give you an example so you can decide if I'm exaggerating. I'm going to remind you that one of the school board members said that she did not want to vote to fund the elective course at Booker T. Washington, which is a magnet school. They have an elective course to teach Chinese. She said she didn't want to fund it because she was afraid that the Chinese communists were paying to indoctrinate our students. I say it not because I want the laugh. I say it because I think we're in dire times now. We are in crazy times where someone in a position of power absolutely believes that, has the power to vote yes or no on an elective course at school. So that's what we got going on. The reason why I mention this today, because she's in there, right? She's in there now. That's what we got. But I mention it because the total number of people that showed up for that school board election where she got elected in that district was 986. Less than 1,000 people showed up, and she won by 126 votes. Folks, it is important that we show up for every election. 986 people. And now we have this devout homophobe sitting on the Tulsa school board. And I'm not calling names before, y'all come after me. I'm not calling names. I'm giving it the appropriate label. She is a devout homophobe. She is, she thinks that if kids learn Chinese, they're going to become communists. I'll just say that. That's her own words, just so you can understand what I'm talking about. I don't know this woman personally. She hasn't done anything to Alicia Andrews personally. I am just afraid for the school board in the city where I live. My school district, my representative, I would call him an extremist who doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. And I assure you, I am mid-50s and he is older than me. But he doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. He's been on the school board for less than 2 years, and he's already announced to run for 2 additional offices in addition to the office that he has. So he's not even sitting in the job that he wants. He's using the school board as a stepping stone. He first announced that he was going to run for the superintendent of public instruction. I don't know what happened to that. But right now, while he's causing chaos on the Tulsa school board, he is also running for city council. GOP. So we had more people show up to vote. We had 6,574 people in my district show up to vote for school board. But Dr. Griffin won by 30 votes. 30. That's 2 blocks of people, 30 people. And because folks aren't showing up, It's real easy for extremists. I'm trying to stick to no name calling and just calling people things that they really are, that's indisputable. It allows room for extremists to get on the school board and wreak havoc. So they raised a lot of noise, raised a lot of havoc, and now Tulsa Public Schools is accredited with deficiencies, the second largest school district in the state, because we have extremists who are raising heck. Now, this isn't really just about the school board, but it's a real world example that we're living through right now that I cannot explain. I cannot say it enough. It is important that you show up every time there's an election and you take somebody with you. Show up every time there's an election, even if you think your person is a shoe-in. Show up, because that's how shoe-ins lose. Ask the guy that Kendra Horn beat in 2018. Even if you think your guy is a shoe-in, you got to show up. Even if you think your guy doesn't have a shot, you got to show up, because they don't have a shot if we don't show up. So we are 3 weeks from the election. If you're wondering if there's an election for you, here's the easy answer. If you live in Oklahoma, there will be a ballot for you on August 23rd. There will be a ballot for you on August 23rd. It's the runoffs and special elections. So at the very minimum, you will have to choose, you'll get the opportunity to select who Democrats are putting up against Langford. And let me remind you who Langford is, because Matt Failing, stop talking to me. I'm not your audience. I don't deal in jibber jabber and made up facts. This is real talk. On August 23rd, if you're a Democrat, there will be a ballot. You will get to decide who runs against James Langford. And I'll remind you who James Langford is. And this is fact. You can go look up the article. You can go look up the interview. Who says that who was a camp counselor where teens went to camp, who said, really simply, 13-year-olds can consent to sex. And when it was clarified to make sure they knew what he was asking, he said, yes, 13-year-olds can consent to sex. This is the same guy. So if he believes that teenagers, particularly 13-year-olds, can say yes to sex, he's the same guy who is also forced birth. He doesn't care what happens to our students. He doesn't care what happens to our young kids, our students, or just our young people. We have got to elect folks who have the future in mind and who, when they get to DC, won't lose their minds and start falling in with the popular kids, but who will remember that they represent Oklahoma. That they represent Oklahoma, not the extremes, but Oklahoma. Oklahoma. The extremes on either side. And yes, I said it as a chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. There are extremes on both sides. Most of Oklahoma aren't on the far ends of either side. And that's who we need to represent. We do not need to pander and be afraid of and hide from the extremes. We need to represent the majority of Oklahoma. So I am strongly encouraging you. I am strongly encouraging you to go out now and look at your sample ballot and get yourself ready. Get your sample ballot and know who you're voting for. And then figure out when you're going to go and meet the people who are on your ballot. You should have a relationship with everyone who is on your ballot. If they're a Democrat, they're going to be out in the public where you can find them and have a conversation with them. Tell them what is important to you and make sure that we hold them accountable. I don't know where the Republicans are. I told you yesterday, the Republicans that represent me, and I got a couple, Republicans that represent me, I don't get an opportunity to see them. I'm not invited to their town halls unless it's sprung on me. Otherwise, I'm not invited. But the Democrats, I can find them everywhere. They're at regular county meetings. They're at chamber meetings. They're at cookouts that are being held by Democrats, by voters. They're real people. Get out and know who they are. They should not just be names on your ballot. They should be people that you know you can believe in. So 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today, we have an election. That is plenty of time to get out and meet the people who are on your ballot. And if you're not sure who's going to be on your ballot, go out to the state election board, put in your name, your birthday, It'll pop up your sample and click on sample ballot. It'll pop up your sample ballot. Search them out on all of their social media, Facebook, Twitter. They're posting where they're going to be. Go meet your candidates, because I assure you, if you're a Democrat and you meet the Democrats, you will like what you hear, and they will convince you that they are who you need to vote for. It needs not be because name recognition. Ugh, go out and meet the folks. So let me tell you a couple of things. Tonight, Kendra Horn will be in Oklahoma City at the Belle Isle Library at 6:30. Labor Day weekend, the Haskell parade will be happening as it normally does, and there's a good opportunity to meet candidates. Carter County is hosting candidates on August 12th. This is just a few examples of where you can go. August 27th, the Democratic Federation of Women are having a big meeting to acknowledge suffrage. August 27th, Oklahoma City. There are times and places where you can go and meet the candidates. I'm going to beg you to be respectful. There's no reason not to be, because they'll just talk to you because you're there. Go meet the candidates. Know who you're voting for. Know who you're voting for, and then tell people. It's really easy. They're counting on us not to vote. Is that they don't think we're going to show up. So all we have to do is show up to beat the spread. That's all we have to do. All we have to do is show up, because everybody talks about how Democrats don't show up. And guys, we're showing up, need to, but Republicans aren't showing up either. So all we have to do is show up in numbers to win races that people don't expect us to win. All you got to do is show up. All you got to do. There is a schedule out on okdemocrats.org. Click on events. There's a schedule, and you can find out where candidates are going to be. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow at 4:15, and you guys have a great evening.